everyone, to another episode of the RDH Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chad, joined by my one and only, believe it or not, brother. How the hell are you doing, Tanner?
I'm good. I'm good. As you can see, I got a new mic. I like it. I think it looks pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying earlier. I was like looking like T-Pain about to start the podcast. I'm digging it.
Yeah, man, I got the auto tune on lockdown. Just don't let me sing.
Don't worry, we're a sports podcast for a reason. Today we're gonna hit a little bit of NBA playoffs recap. We're gonna hit a little NHL playoffs recap, and then we are ranking the top 20 running backs in the NFL. So it's gonna be a fun episode. Tanner, you ready to jump into this sports talk?
Oh, heck yeah, I'm ready.
Here we go. Well, start us off with a little bit of NBA playoffs recap. What do you think of that Heat and Celtics series? And I can't wait to hear who you have predicted for the finals.
Man, going into tonight, I was like, I don't really know what, or let's say last night. Going into last night, I didn't really know what was going to happen. Last night being Game 7 with the Heat and the Celtics. And I just, the one thing that comes to mind when I think back to that Game 7 and just in general when the Celtics lost each of their individual games was it just kind of looked like they didn't show up. You know, like they just didn't really hit their shots. They didn't really look like the team that had won the previous 3 games. Like the Celtics are a really, really good team and they've got a lot of like superstars in that team. So it's really hard to believe that they're just not performing. You know what I mean? Like you would think that somebody could step up and somebody could make a play. Uh, in Game 6 it was Derek White, and like in Game 7 of the previous series when they played the 76ers, it was Jason Tatum. He dropped like 42 or something like that. But
I think it was 49. I think you got close to a 50 burger. I remember that.
whatever it is, that didn't happen in this Game 7, right? Like what?
Because Tatum rolled his ankle 29 seconds into the game. There's no way Tatum is going to be at a level that he needs to be when he rolls his ankle. I mean, you saw it when
Yeah,
you were watching the
absolutely.
game. He passed the ball every single time practically he had the ball. He still made some shots, right? Like he still got double. I mean, I know he had 10 points. I saw at one point when your best player rolls their ankle 29 seconds into the game. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not looking great for you. And I agree with what you're saying with like having a star-studded lineup. You know, their stars not showing up. Jimmy Butler didn't really show up either last game, which is crazy to me. Like if you're gonna tell me as a Heat fan that hey, Jimmy's not really gonna show up. Jason Tatum rolls his ankle. Would you roll the dice on that? I think as a Heat fan, you probably wouldn't because you're like, if Jimmy doesn't show up, I don't know who does on that team, right?
Yeah.
But they still win.
Yeah.
They're finding a way to win. So it's like
And I
I said it last pod. I told him not. I said do not let to win one game. They won three and they didn't complete it anyway. Going with what you're saying about these best players because I'm interested to hear how you end this.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, like you got Jalen Brown, you got Marcus Smart, right, and Robert Williams, not really an offensive player, but he's a key player, I would say, in that offense. And I would say those two are pretty big names around the NBA, right? And you would expect them to step up in a Game 7 situation, and for the most part, they kind of did. Jalen Brown didn't have the best night shooting in Game 7. Marcus Smart was okay, but it's just it just didn't look like they were there. Meanwhile, like the Heat, I would say that Jimmy Butler is probably the most notable name on that roster, that starting lineup, with Bam being the second one, right? Bam Adebayo. So when you tell me that, let me pull up his numbers. Caleb Martin, their small forward, he had 26
Went off.
points. He went off the entire series. And I promise you, there have been so many people who have no idea who this guy is until this series even started, right? You know, it's players like that, I think, that make the Heat a championship team, or at least that are going to the championship. Um, that's pretty much it. Like you need somebody to step up. The Celtics didn't have it, and the Heat found it in Caleb Williams, and that's amazing. Obviously, Jimmy Butler played amazing the entire series. They should have won in Game 6. Derek White had a crazy put back at the very end of Game 6, but like
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. What
I
else do you think?
to me, the series is never come back in the NBA from being down 0 and 3.
Yeah.
Never. It's like 0 and 150. And What's interesting is that in the NHL, it has happened before. It doesn't happen a lot. It has happened before. In the NBA, it doesn't happen. And for me, I just wanted to know why the heck has that never happened before. And then you actually watch those games and you watch Boston play, and they got very lucky with one, and the other two they single-handedly won. Like they were
Yeah.
the better team in those two games, in my opinion, and they got lucky in one of them. In the last game, they didn't even that wasn't even a game. I understand that they brought it within 10 in the third and fourth, but third, I don't know about the fourth, but it just like it wasn't that close of a game. I was sitting there watching it last night at a bar, and like it just wasn't
Yeah, it wasn't
close
close.
game. Like the best way I can describe it is I'm sitting there watching, like, okay, and I'm watching this TV, watching the Heat and the Celtics, and I'm like, okay, the Heat are up like 19. I look over here and I got Vegas and Dallas, and Vegas is up 6-0. I'm like, okay, there's sports right now, they're just blowouts, and that's what the last game one was. The last game was a blowout. Now,
Yeah.
I still think Boston has the better team. Still think Boston has the better team. I think that Boston has a better team because of the names you mentioned: Robert Williams, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. You got guys coming off the bench too. You got Marcus Smart, like you said. You got Al Horford, that's literally
Yeah. Completely forgot.
jacking up. You got Al Horford jacking up threes yesterday.
I know.
Of course, Boston's going to lose the game if you got Al Horford jacking up threes. No disrespect, one of the really good players, been around forever, but you cannot have a player like that do that, and that's what happens when you don't have when your offensive weapons aren't performing. Offensive weapons aren't performing. You have, you know, pulling up from three from a very long range when he shouldn't even have been taking the shot in the first place, right? So I think that Denver's going to win the NBA Finals for sure. Like, I think that it's not even close. I think it's a lock, in my opinion. And I know it's crazy that you're even saying, why are you going against a Florida team right now? There's two of them in the finals in multiple sports, but Denver is a number one seed for a reason. In LA, the Lakers were a great team, number two team in the West, and they made them look like a high school basketball team.
Yep.
Now they're playing a team that, in my opinion, is way worse defensively than the Heat. I don't think the Heat are going to be able to keep up with the Nuggets. I have to give them at least a couple games. I think this series goes at least 6, and I have the Nuggets winning game 6 pretty handedly, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because what would you say like the Nuggets' most dominant part of their team is? Probably Jokic, right? In the way that he plays.
Joker, for sure. Like
Yeah,
yeah, he's a number 1 or number 2 player in the league.
exactly. So I think Anthony Davis, when they played, Anthony Davis, he didn't contain him because it's impossible to contain
Not
the
at all.
Joker. But he played a very decent to good game. You know what I mean? Like good series, excuse me. And I just don't I don't really think that the Heat with Bam are gonna have that type of success. You know what I mean? I would say like Bam, obviously he's a more defensive player just overall, but I I just can't give him the edge over like this series as opposed to the Nuggets and the Lakers series, you know? So that's why I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking the Nuggets in 6 just because Jimmy Butler, and that's the only reason I'm giving him 2. And it's just because the Nuggets are they just look so good. Like they shot extraordinarily well against the Lakers, and they have throughout this entire playoffs. Jamal Murray has been an absolute beast. He just pulls up and he doesn't miss. It's like the rim is like 18 feet in diameter. It's insane. He just pulls up and he's just like splash. you know?
Yeah, every time. And you have players that make a name for themselves in the playoffs, right? And you have to have people other than the Joker.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
he not only has he made himself honestly in contention for the best player in the playoffs, he's going up there in best one of guards in the league right now, especially if he caps it off with this playoff performance, wins a championship, and continues to perform at the high level he is. Then it's a bright future in Denver. I mean, like I said, they're the number one seed for a reason. Picked them in 6. You know what I mean? We'll see what happens with the
Yeah.
series, but I do think it's going to be some close games. I don't think the Heat go away, and like you said, without a Bam Adebayo, he is more of a defensive player, and I don't necessarily think that the matchup is better, like I was saying earlier. But I do think that if Miami gets hot, I think I think that Denver should say, if Jamal gets cold on Denver, then it all changes.
Yeah, I
It
agree.
completely changes if he gets cold. But He hasn't been cold the whole playoffs. I don't think he's going to be cold. I don't think it's going to just start now. Um, do you have anything else on this series, or are we jumping to hockey?
No, I think we covered it all.
Jumping to hockey. So the NHL playoffs recap, conference finals round is officially done. We have the Vegas Golden Knights facing off against the Florida Panthers. That's right, folks. The Florida Panthers. I literally forgot the team for a second. No disrespect to Florida. I've watched every one of these games in the playoffs, by the way. Um, just jumping real quick to the Dallas and Vegas series. Stole game five. They won game five pretty handedly. And then game six, I mean, it wasn't even close. Like I said, it was 6-0. Vegas came out scoring. I think Dallas had 4 shots. I want to say at the end of the first, if not very close to the end of the first, they had 12 shots going into the third. You cannot perform like that. Like every single one of Dallas's star players, and honestly, every single one of Dallas's players did not show up.
Yeah.
They they looked like a minor league hockey team, just like the Nuggets made the Lakers look like a minor league basketball team. Like that was one of the most boring hockey games I've ever watched in my life. And being someone that played hockey in Texas for 20 years, it honestly was a bit embarrassing because I understand that every now and then you get your butt kicked in a hockey game, but losing arguably like football score 0, and I mean Dallas didn't even skate. They looked like they weren't trying. I don't know
Mm-mm.
if the players got a bonus for not going to the cup, but I mean that was the most sad performances I've ever seen in an elimination playoff game. If Dallas won, they could have gone back and had a game 7. Vegas just dominated them. Defensively, offensively, goaltending, it wasn't even close. Every single aspect of the game, Vegas absolutely dominated them. And it sucks to see a team like Dallas, who is such a team that drags you down to their level and makes you play and has guys like Joe Pavelski, Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, Miro Heiskanen. You want to see these guys win a cup. You want to see these guys win a cup. And the time is getting smaller and smaller and smaller because Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, Joe Pavelski, those guys are all in their 30s. Bob's, I think, 35 plus. Jamie Benn's got to be 34 plus. Tyler Sagan's got to be in his low 30s. That's getting up there. Now, hockey, yes, you can play a little bit longer. I think Yager played till he was 50. But me to watch a game like that, especially being a Dallas fan as my second team behind the Sharks, it sucked. What do you think about the way Dallas ended that series, Tanner?
I just think it's so hard because some of in that series Dallas's best games were the games that they went to overtime and lost. And I feel like that's just so demoralizing if you're a team. And then you're down you basically lose game 2 and game 3 in the exact same way. You go to overtime, you get scored on immediately. And it's like, "Bro, what do you want us to do?" You know what I mean? And I mean, I think just the thing about this whole series is just inconsistency where Dallas is just inconsistent and Vegas wasn't, They put in a lot more shots that Dallas didn't. And I think in that game 6, I looked at it and it was like Vegas had like 17 shots but 4 goals and it was like, damn. that's pretty bad. It was like the second period or something like that. But
It's horrible.
it's
that's a
it's
horrible
terrible.
goals against.
And it's I said that if Dallas wanted to win this series, they needed their stars to show up. Robertson, he showed up and he played a lot better than he did in the previous series, and that kind of looks like he's the only one who came to play. And that's pretty much it. But 0 goals in Game 6, you can't have that. Like, what is that? Someone needs to step up. Kind of like the Celtics in the Hate series. Someone needs to step up, but nobody did, and that makes the difference between a championship team and a conference finals team, right?
Exactly. And you have a team like Florida. You have 4 teams that are playing in the South right now. Crazy. They were in the conference finals, and now we've got, like I said, Florida against Vegas. I don't freaking know. Okay, I don't know. I was going back and forth before this podcast trying to pick who I wanted to go. It has to go 7. There's no way it doesn't go 7. And if it's a game 7, either team can win. So, no, right? Like, it's really hard. I don't know if Florida has won a Stanley Cup. I know Vegas hasn't because
They
they're an
haven't.
expansion team.
I don't think they have because I think I looked it up.
So either team wins a Stanley Cup. So
That's pretty cool.
that's what I'm looking for. Now, the next thing. There's a little bit of information for a lot of you folks who aren't hockey fans, especially USA hockey fans. Played for USA Hockey for my entire life, not the actual USA Hockey team. I'm nowhere near that good. But you have the two arguably, you can say top five. Jack Eichel, United States born player, going up against Chuck, Matthew Tkachuk.
I'm excited.
So that to me is a winning series in itself because you do not see the United States, especially at the very top of their players being there. This year we had them. Pavelski, who's one of the greats, if not the greatest player in the United States that we've seen in our lifetime. You can argue a couple other players up there. You have these guys that are young and they're in the cup against each other, and it's going to be a great series. Vegas and like Florida right now has better goaltending. They have Bobrovsky. He is right. Right now he is not only the best goaltender in the playoffs. This last series, he's turned it on. Like I said last podcast, he had saved 101 out of 100 shots entering the third period of last game. They've also had 9 days rest, I think is what it's supposed to be.
That's crazy.
It is all of the stars are aligning for Florida right now, but here's the thing. Tkachuk said in an interview that I listened to post game, wants to play. He liked how the games were going very soon. The team they were going real quick because if you look at the first second round, they didn't have a whole lot of rest time, if any, right? If maybe a couple days. And he liked that they were going as hard as they could, right, game after game. You got night after night, you got maybe a night rest, but now they had 9 days. Is that a factor? Right? Like, is that an actual factor? I don't think so. I think because a lot of these guys are banged up, 9 days is like 3 years in hockey terms, especially in the Stanley Cup final. And you have a Vegas team who played 7 games with Dallas, but Dallas played them hard, right? Like Dallas played them tough, and Dallas at times in that series was in it. So I think that a Florida team that right now it's really hard to pick against, a Vegas team that it's really hard to pick against too. But I'm gonna go with Vegas, just because I think that I know you're gonna pick Florida, so I wanted to be able to give you Florida there, Tanner. And if you pick Vegas, then dang it, I messed it up. But the thing is with Vegas is I just think they have a better defensive team. Also think that Jack Eichel right now, I'm not saying that Tkachuk isn't playing at a crazy level. Those two, the level they're playing right now, are going to be really fun, but I think Jack Eichel has a slight edge right now, and that's why I'm going Vegas.
You know me too well, all right? Because, of course, I'm going to go Florida here. I mean, who doesn't love a Cinderella story, right? And I think one of the big reasons is just because they just look so good. I mean, they beat the Bruins, who are supposed to be like the best team in these playoffs, right? And they made fun of them too.
Of really good teams.
Exactly.
Ton of really good teams.
And then I think they went on to beat the Maple Leafs, who are a pretty good team as well. And then they freaking shut out the Hurricanes, and it's just like, what? In 4, and it's like I don't know, but I think I'm going Florida in 6. I just think it's too much fun.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just confirming here. Yes, Tkachuk was born in Scottsdale, Arizona, in 1997. So I wanted to make sure that I was right there, and I am. Thank goodness.
America final.
Yeah, it's great because it's never going to happen.
True, that is very true.
But we'll see what happens with the Stanley Cup playoffs. Games are starting soon, so I'm stoked. Then we got the NBA Finals. It's the best time in sports here. Tanner, we get into our top 20 running back rankings here.
Heck yeah. If you didn't read the title, we're doing the top 20 running backs in the NFL. Now, I will say this was really difficult for me, at least, just because it's like there's so many things you can grade like a running back on, and there's so many different opinions when it comes to running backs. And there's also like fantasy rankings that are kind of similar to just I guess what we're doing, but at the same time not. So it's like I don't know. So our rankings might differ a little bit. I don't think they will a ton, just because I know you and I are kind of similar minded. But I don't know. You ready to get into this?
I'm I'm stoked to get into it. And yeah, just like you were saying, you know what I mean? It was tough. It was definitely tough. I was thinking about doing the running back duo. And then I thought to myself that that's going to take a couple days to actually actually
I know.
get me to
I
actually
know.
do that. That'll maybe come in a future episode. We're gonna rank every single position, not every single position, but we're gonna maybe every position. Why the heck not?
Hey man, I don't know
um,
offensive line that well. Okay.
hey, what you will after you do one rankings. We'll do
That's
like a
true.
top five
That's true.
offensive linemen. I would love to do that because
That'd
I
be fun.
watched like 15 to 20 offensive linemen every year coming out of college, so I could go for days on offensive linemen. But jumping into the running backs, have different lists. There's not the same list. We're comparing lists. I'm gonna say my list. Tanner's gonna say his list. We're gonna start off at 20. We're gonna go all the way down to number one. These are ranked in order. This is if we're walking in and we're starting an NFL team. And of course, we have to start it off with some honorable mentions.
Of course.
I'm gonna go ahead and hit some honorable mentions here. One of them is Aaron Jones.
Okay.
If you don't know who Aaron Jones is, he's halfback for the Green Bay Packers. Been there. It feels like a decade now, but it hasn't because I'm pretty sure he's still in his 20s. He has to be an honorable mention. I cannot take him now. You know what I mean? Just because you have his counterpart with AJ Dillon on the other side, and you're starting to see the shift with AJ Dillon more, and Aaron Jones is just taken away from the goal line play. But I really like Aaron Jones in the passing game, and that's why I have to give him an honorable mention because of his field of work. You know what I mean? Aaron Jones has been a top 10 back, top 15 back, maybe not last year, but the previous years, for years.
Yeah.
And then the Eagles pick up this guy from the Lions named DeAndre Swift. I have to put him in there as an honorable mention because I know he has a ton of injuries. Thing, man. Watching DeAndre Swift, very scary running back when he gets in space. I think he is one of the best running backs. Give him a slim chance to get into space. Let a running back with Miles Sanders go, and in my opinion, they got an upgrade. Spoiler alert, I don't have Miles Sanders in this list. I think that I had to put DeAndre Swift there, and just him being young and him, learning the scheme in Detroit and really playing well with Detroit when you already kind of knew they were going to lean on the run game is why he's my honorable mentions. Tanner, who are your honorable mentions?
Okay, so immediately different. So in my honorable mention, and this is just a personal favorite of mine. I don't know why I like this running back, but it's Raheem Mostert for the Miami Dolphins, and this guy is just pure speed. And I did have him in fantasy last year, and it really hurt because I just sometimes I didn't play him, and it felt like I should, and then he went off for like 20 or 30 points, and it's like, dang, dang. But he's really fast, and I think he could be absolutely be a number one running back role. He splits carries with I think Jeff Wilson, but whenever this guy is on the field, it looks like he just gets more yards than if you were to put Jeff Wilson in, like in that Miami offense. I think he just like in space, he's just he's more evasive, he's faster. He's been in the league a lot longer too, which is kind of crazy. He's a veteran, and he's come back from like an injury or two, and he's still this good. So I think the longevity, just the fact that he is again pure speed, and that makes him my honorable mention.
I think that you could absolutely see him being in the top 20 running backs fantasy wise
Oh
next
yeah.
season.
Oh yeah.
If not top 15, because I agree. I definitely picked him up in one of in the league that I wasn't with you in, I'm pretty sure. I had him on my team, and I feel like every time I put him on my bench, he at least got me 15.
Exactly.
I'm like every time I'm like, come on. So I think not only I agree with that one, I absolutely agree with that as an honorable mention. He's not on my list, but he's a good back. But the thing is with him is he just doesn't really get the maybe the playtime. You know what I mean? Like it's not that he splits it 50-50, but what they've done with Miami last year is they rode the hot hand. And especially with that offense, when you have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, it's like how much carries is he actually going to get? So
Yeah.
that's why I kind of left him off my list. But that's a solid one because I love Mostert, dude.
Yeah. And my other honorable mention, he just got drafted, is Jahmyr Gibbs, and I just think he's got big shoes to fill. Um, he's probably going to come in as, I would say, the number one running back there. I think David Montgomery is the other back there, but like, he's an honorable mention on this list, and I will say David Montgomery is on my list, and he is higher. But I think as the season goes along, you're going to see Jahmyr Gibbs' stock rise just because he's young, he's hungry, he's from Alabama. We know what Alabama running backs can do. Josh Jacobs leading the league in rushing this year. But he's explosive. It's fun to watch him play, and that's why I have him as an honorable mention.
And with the thing with Gibbs, man, is I was saying it the whole time talking in our draft episodes. Literally Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, yeah.
He is YouTube Alvin Kamara, Alabama, YouTube Jahmyr Gibbs, Alabama. And they looked like the exact same player. That was a player comp. He is absolutely going to be a force in this league. And if I could add one more honorable mention, I would have had him too. But for me with Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery is how much left in the tank does David Montgomery have? Because Montgomery for a long time was a top back. You saw it kind of drop off last year. You saw it drop off a little bit last year. You actually told me too the contract isn't a whole lot. I think it's about $8 million or so with David Montgomery. So that's running back 2 money. That's not necessarily running back 1 money, but it could be running back 1 money. Now the thing with Jahmyr Gibbs is what I think is going to happen. I think Montgomery is going to primarily be the red zone back, and I think that Jahmyr Gibbs is primarily going to be the back on first and second down in obvious passing situations. So I think you got him on 1 and 2, and then you got Montgomery on third down pretty much every time, especially because Montgomery brings in that blocking element that he's pretty solid at. Gibbs is nowhere near a blocking running back, but that's a solid honorable mention with Gibbs there.
Yeah, it's going to be like that physical back, elusive back, kind of thing where they have that 1-2 punch with like the Aaron Jones and the AJ Dillon, or the Zeke and the Tony Pollard, or the Alvin Kamara and what is his name? Like a couple years ago. Mark Ingram. That was it.
Yeah, Mark Ingram. Then they had I can't remember the other guy. And then not LaShawn McCoy. I'll remember his name as soon as we're talking about somebody else. It'll pop into my head. Number 20.
My number 20?
Who's your number 20? I'm interested.
At number 20, I have Jamal Williams. And it's another Lions running back, actually. Just because he broke 1,000 yards this year, and I like the guy. I think he's cool. It's kind of hard once you get into these 20s. But he had a lot of really good plays this last season, and he's a cool guy.
He's a number 1.
He's a number 1.
The number 1 now with the Saints.
The Saints. And he's going to be splitting carries with Kamara. And I think you're going to start seeing, the decline, more, steady decline of Kamara and just the rise of his stock,
I think that I have to agree with that. And also Kamara is most likely facing suspension this year. And that's the reason that they brought him over. So that's why I'm saying he's a running back. He's going to be a running back 1 most likely this year. The thing with Alvin Kamara is that you don't know what's going to happen with the suspension. You have no idea. Yeah. And then you've seen them. It almost seems like featuring him a little bit less as time has gone on. And you don't know if that's wear and tear with Alvin Kamara, if that's just what's going on coaching wise. There's a lot of changes going on in New Orleans. So for me with Alvin Kamara, he is on my list and he's still one of my favorite running backs in the NFL in terms of on the field. And was a really good running back to bring in.
Yeah, I completely agree
with Williams. Really, really good running back to bring in with Williams. My number 20 is the New England Patriots running back.
Oh, I knew you were going to do this.
Ramondre Stevenson.
It's only because you had him in fantasy.
Old Ramondre Stevenson. No, the reason I have him is because, and this is, this is going to happen. In 2 years, he probably won't be in the league because he's a New England running back. You know what I mean? They're either New England running backs are either in the league for 20 years or like 4 max. But no, with him is that I really truly do think the 20th running back in the NFL if you look off his work. Done in the 2 years he's been in the league. I think it's 3 years actually. First year he wasn't featured at all. Second year he had over 1,000 yards. Third year he had over 1,000 yards. And you have a New England team that is, I don't want to say in chaos right now, but is in definite rebuild mode after Tomlin. Maybe not rebuild mode, but they need a lot of help. I'll just say that.
Yeah, it's closer to a rebuild than they've been recently,
Exactly. I think they're going to get last in their division, like we said last pod. But Ramondre Stevenson, I think, is a bright side on that offense. And I really think that he is a top running back in the NFL because actually featured him. It's kind of the same thing like you said with Mostert. They just don't feature that often. When they do feature him, they do. In these last couple of years, they have featured him, right? That's why I have him at number 20. What do you think about that one, Tanner? With old Stevenson there at 20.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't put him on my list because I just look at New England running backs and I'm just like, oh, there's another one. He's gonna maybe get like 1,000 yards, probably just around 1,000, and just sit there for a while. Yeah, I like him. I think he's a good back. If he was on the fantasy waiver wire, I'd pick him up. If you have like our league, it's like, okay, it's a good start for like this week that my running back is on bye.
Yeah, exactly. Now, jumping. Okay, I'll go 19, then you go ahead and go 19.
Sure.
My 19 is another shocker. I'm starting off the list with a couple shockers.
That's fun.
Isaiah Pacheco, the running back out of Kansas City. Here's my thing. Here's my thing. It's really hard with Kansas City because Mahomes makes everybody look really, really good. makes everybody look like a running back number one. You have a running back with Jarrett McKinnon. Right? He was supposed to be the number one running back. Injuries have held him back from that. He was back. He was ready to go. Isaiah Pacheco was like, and he made him look slow. He just made him look like a running back number 2. I don't know how I missed Isaiah Pacheco coming out of college, but the kid he has the package. He can catch it out of the backfield. Not going to block, but he can catch it out of the backfield. He's very elusive in the open field. If he gets in the open field, freaking luck. He's got speed. He's got quickness. His change of direction is great. Anticipation is really, really good. And you don't know if he's actually that good or if Mahomes is making him that good. But here's the thing. The ball, it's all him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mahomes, yes, may make the pass coverage change a little bit and change up the protection and tell the blockers where to go and everything. I'm not saying it's 100%, but I'm saying he has majority of that. He has the rock in his hands. So I think Pacheco's there for 19.
I think that's amazing because I don't think it's bad at all. Because if I had one more honorable mention, I probably would have put Pacheco because I was contemplating putting him on the list as it is, just because we haven't seen so much of him. We've seen so little of him, so it was hard for me to put him on the list. But next year, I do think he's gonna be something in Kansas City. So watch out. But what are we on 19? 19, I have David Montgomery, another Lion. So the bottom of my list is just Lions. But yeah, I just kind of got to give some respect to the boy. He's done it for a while, and I think in kind of like a low pressure situation in Detroit, he's going to not flourish, but he's going to be a very good role player, and he's still going to get the carries that he needs and that he deserves. And I think he's going to get, let's say, like 6, 7, maybe 8 touchdowns on the year. And probably he might even break 1,000 yards again. We'll see what happens. But the thing about him is he's very he's just gonna run through you. He doesn't really care, and he's gonna get the yards, the tough yardage, and they're gonna put him in on those situations, and he's probably gonna break a couple.
Exactly, and when you had Ezekiel Elliott win the rushing title, for sure once, I think he did it. I don't know if he did it twice. It was twice. He did it twice. First one that he won. Number 2 was David Montgomery.
Yeah,
David Montgomery has been there in top 5, top 10 yards for the last as long as Zeke's been in the league. I'm pretty sure they're the same draft class. You have a player like David Montgomery, then you have a player like Jamar Gibbs. They are the exact opposite player.
Yes, absolutely.
Montgomery is not going to catch the ball out of the backfield like Jamar Gibbs is going to. You can put Jamar Gibbs on a wheel route and you can go, but here's the thing. You can catch the ball out of the backfield. So I actually see Lions almost featuring the run, having pass as a secondary option. I don't know why they wouldn't have both backs in the backfield. Why you wouldn't have kind of what like Dallas did, where they had Ezekiel Elliott at the fullback position,
Yeah.
and they had Tony Pollard at the halfback position. I'm not saying David Montgomery is going to be a fullback, but David Montgomery is a pretty solid blocker in terms of pickups. He's been blocking for Justin Fields. He's going to a place where Jared Goff's not that mobile. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
No
yeah.
disrespect to Mr. Goff, but you ain't that mobile. And you have a player like David Montgomery coming in there that's a better blocker than Gibbs, right? So I don't think it's a bad running back to have. I do think that next year he won't be on the list because I do think you're going to start to see that decline in running backs just because we were talking about before the podcast got on. If you're 28 years old, that's an old running back in the NFL. And David Montgomery's definitely 28 plus. But man, has he been fun to watch?
No,
he's been
completely agree.
He's been fun to watch.
Completely agree.
Fun to watch. You want to hit 17 on or 18 on yours?
Did you do 18?
Yeah.
Okay. My number 17 is Alvin Kamara.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got Alvin Kamara there.
Yeah. Wait. No. I did my 19. I didn't do my 18. That was my 17.
So I was saying, I think you skipped one. So what's your 18?
Okay. How about you do 18 and then I'll do 18.
Okay. 18 is Bijan for me.
18 is Bijan. I mean, it's fair.
Who's your 18?
My 18 is Najee.
Najee. Okay. So first let's jump into Najee.
Yeah.
Najee at 18, I agree because running back still that you cannot take off the list because he has been a bright spot in that Steelers offense. And it is a very young core there with Kenny Pickett, himself, and George Pickens, the wide receiver. So I think that that's a very, very good player, and he is going to be a top 10, if not top 15 running back this next year. Then you had Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara is the only reason he's not in the top 10 is because of being most likely suspension, in my opinion. That's the only reason that he's not. So those are the two that I'm going to hit on for you. So tell me kind of why you picked him at 18 and 17.
Going with Najee, I think there were like a lot of expectations with Najee coming into the NFL, especially since he was a first round pick and he's going to the Steelers and, you know, he's going to that just big organization. He's filling in the shoes of Le'Veon Bell. And it's kind of like he hasn't looked, and I hate to say this because he's been a good back. He's been a good young back, but he just kind of hasn't filled the shoes as much as I would have liked him to, you know? He's been good, don't get me wrong, and he's been like one of the only good things about this Steelers offense, but I want them to feature him more. I think that's just a problem we're going to start seeing with these running backs unless we start getting to the very top. I just want him to give him the rock more. You know, he's good. He's going to get you at least 3 or 4 yards, and that's what you're going to need on a first or a second down. You know, he just hasn't had the production that I feel like he can do. You know, hopefully next year he takes a big step forward, but I'm just not sure about it. With 17 though, Alvin Kamara, it's kind of like the decline in production, which is fair because he's an older running back. You know, he doesn't have the next, like the upper echelon of gear that he used to have. You know, everyone used to be afraid of him when he got the ball in space in the flat. He was probably going to get 6, 7, maybe even, you know, up to like 15 yards. You never know. He's so elusive.
He was the best in the NFL in space.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the game where Dallas played him at home, and I just remembered this. You were there, and it was a goal line stand from Dallas, and they gave the ball to Alvin Kamara like almost every other time, and they just somehow contained him. And that was one of the hardest things to do in the NFL at the time. Granted, Dallas's defense was nice that year, but the Saints were like 13-3 or something like that. If you don't remember that season, I mean, go back.
Night game.
It was awesome, dude. But
I remember that. That was like a 13-10 game we won. I remember that.
There's just a lot of like uncertainty surrounding Alvin Kamara. The thing about his situation too is like we haven't heard anything about the court case or anything like that about what happens. So it's like, what's going on? You know, what's happening behind these closed doors? We have no information, and it's just probably just going to pop up in the middle of the season, I have a feeling. So that's kind of why he's at 17. I have to put him on the list, give him the respect that he deserves. But yeah, that's pretty much me. What do you got at 18 and 17?
So I had Bijan at 18,
yeah,
and
okay.
And here's the thing: Bijan Robinson, the rookie running back out of Texas, that is now the running back for the Atlanta Falcons. The thing is when I make these lists, I don't typically like to put rookies on there, just because you have no idea what they're going to do in the NFL. But you have a first round pick in fantasy,
should probably get this guy if you have a dynasty league, because is he going to be around for a while? I have never thought in my life to watch extended coverage of the Atlanta Falcons in the offseason. Oh my goodness. If you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, you're not a team fan, just go get a jersey, because he's lined up in the slot. He's lined up on the outside. He's lined up on the right side. He's lined up on the left side. He's lined up in the fullback position. He's everywhere. Tight end, every single position on the field he is lined up in. I did not coming. I did not see him being lined up on the outside. I did not see him being lined up in the slot, but that is absolutely terrifying, because they have a Desmond Ridder who is an option-based quarterback, and they also have Kyle Pitts, who's very fast off the line. I have Cordell Patterson, who is going to be a running back and also probably a wide receiver. He's a pending free agent still, but I think they're going to bring him back. That alone right there is nice. Oh, by the way, I forgot Drake London. Huge target on the outside that you automatically have to have safety help if he's going deep, because you can't put him one-on-one with a corner. So what Atlanta is doing is Atlanta is literally calling your bluff, saying, okay, I'm going to throw it to London on this play because he's one-on-one and it's a 50-50 ball and my quarterback can get it to him. Okay, that's fine. I'll get 5 or 6 on first down. Am I going to give it to Cordell? I don't know. Am I going to give it to Bijan? I don't know. Oh, Kyle Pitts is right there too, and you have to watch him. You have to have linebacker help on him, even though he hasn't done that well because he's so athletic. You have to have help.
Yeah,
that is a scary offense, and they haven't seen it. But I will take out a bet right now. Robinson is going to win Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. I did talk to Brad about this. Brad thinks he's going to win Rookie of the Year as well. There's nobody else rookie-wise that is this exciting coming into this league, or has been in a while. This is a clear-cut running back that is going to compete for not only the rookie rushing title. I think he could arguably compete for the rushing title. I don't see him getting less than 1,000 yards this season. See him getting less than 500 receiving yards this season. Guess what? He's a rookie running back. He's going to be in every play. They're going to run him to the ground. He will sign probably a second contract, but like we were saying, 28 is old. He running back for a running back. Bijan is a very good running back with every single box checked. Oh, and by the way, he's a better pass catcher than I thought he was. So that's my number 18. My number 17 is another young back of New York, Breece Hall. I have Breece Hall there at 17. Before the injury, was probably going to win, Rookie of the Year last year. And Aaron Rodgers walks into a very young wide receiver with Garrett Wilson, very young running back with Breece Hall. And Aaron Rodgers, he made Aaron Jones a pass-catching tight end, or pass-catching running back. I don't know if Aaron Jones was necessarily a pass-catching running back coming out of UTEP. I didn't see a whole lot of it when I was watching him coming out of University of Texas, El Paso. But you've got Aaron Rodgers slipping you the rock. You've also got Aaron Rodgers who's going to tell you what's going to happen. Aaron Rodgers has been known to call out what's happening on the defense. And guess what? Paul's going to be listening. He's only going to be getting better from last season, and he was already really freaking good. So that's why I have Breece Hall there at 17. I almost put him up even more than that, but that's who I got at 18 and 17.
I completely agree with the Bijan and the Breece Hall kind of thing. Just with Bijan, I mean, that dude is just going to be, I think he's going to add like that next level to that Falcons offense. And you were saying all the names that they have, they got a lot of big names. You know what I mean? Like, it's a bunch of young kids that have all kind of stepped up. You know what I mean? If they just gotta put it all together, and I think they're getting pretty close. The rebuild is not quite over, but we're getting there, and they've got some nice names up there now with Bijan. I mean, he brings that kind of like that powerful element to it. Everyone else is kind of like more or less like tinier, speedier guys. But he just brings that force up the middle, which I'm really excited about. I'm really happy to see him there in Atlanta.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. But talking about your next one, number 17 for you, number 16 for me, Breece Hall. Yeah, that kid's awesome. I mean, he got exactly like you said. He got injured, and he was having a fantastic season. And it was
Going to win Rookie of the Year.
I think he was. And funny enough, we said it before the podcast, but both his teammates went offensive and then defensive Rookie of the Year, which is kind of funny. But it was coming home to New York one way or another. But
Exactly.
I don't know, man. This kid is special. I think he's probably going to be one of, if not the best running back out of that draft class, right? That was the draft class where like no running backs were picked in the first round except for like Bijan or Najee, excuse me. Like wasn't it that one?
I think Brees was a little bit after. I think the draft after.
Really?
Wasn't he with Kenneth Walker?
I think he was.
I say Brees Hall and Kenneth Walker. That'd be the only other running back though in that draft that I would say would give him a. You know what I mean? I personally think Kenneth Walker's a pretty solid running back.
Yeah. I agree, but he's gonna be fun to watch. I really hope he doesn't just like not show up. You know what I mean? After this injury, because you never know with running backs, which is kind of scary. But yeah, who's your 16?
Funny you mention it, Kenneth Walker.
Kenneth Walker at 16.
Kenneth Walker is my 16. So Brees Hall and Kenneth Walker, the only reason I have Kenneth Walker above Brees Hall is because I couldn't see Brees Hall finish out the season last year. I think that if Brees Hall would have finished out the season, I would have flipped him. But I have to put in Kenneth Walker because you watched Seattle last year. Saying, oh well, DK Tyler Lockett took a lot of pressure off of Geno. He did. They both did. Kenneth Walker took a lot of pressure off of Geno last year. He a hell of a season last year for a rookie running back. He was solid. He was really solid all around, and I think that that's their future running back. And the thing about Seattle that sucked is they had a running back by the name of Chris Carson that just could not stay healthy. He was so good when he was on the field, but he just could not stay healthy. Walker is that guy. Kenneth Walker is that guy that's going to be there for a long time. So that's my number 16. Gave me your number 16 was Brees?
Yeah, my number 16 was Brees. So
then I'll jump to 15. My number 15 is a running back from the Cincinnati Bengals. I have to put him here. Mr. Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon.
You can't not put Joe in. I understand that the last couple of years, this is one of those things for me is next year I'm not sure if he'll be on the list. He'll probably be an honorable mention next year because that offense is, I think Joe Burrow's probably going to have a 5,000 passing yards and Jamar Chase going to have like 2,000 receiving yards this year. They're just so good all around. They're so good all around. The Bengals are in every position, and they got better in the draft this year. So Nixon, you have to. He's been up there the last 5 years. He's been up there in the top 10 every time, and he's taken off a lot of pressure off of Joe Burrow, and has been a bright spot on that Bengals team when there wasn't a whole lot of bright spots there.
Yeah, I completely agree about the Joe Mixon thing. You got to give him his due. You know what I mean? He's a tenured back in the NFL, and he's had a lot of really good seasons. And I'm gonna jump to I think I'm on 15. I'm gonna do my 15 and then my 14, and I think it's actually gonna be pretty funny. So as a reminder, my 16 was Brees Hall. I think your 17 was Brees Hall. My 15 is Kenneth Walker. That was your 16. My 14 is Joe Mixon. That was your 15. All right. But the thing...
Well, you said we were going to be close. You nailed it.
I didn't think it was going to be this close. But the thing about Joe Mixon, I just want to hit on him, is something that I was thinking about. Last season, he had 292 carries, 1,205 yards, and 13 touchdowns. That was last season. Like, come on. Like, if he deserves to be on this list, and he deserves to be considered as, I think, a top running.
Let me say, I guess that's an okay season.
It's okay.
I guess it's all right. I did say he was declining the last couple seasons. It's my bad. I did not realize he almost had 13.
No,
at one point.
But the thing is, like, you didn't notice it because Joe Burrow was doing so well. But he was a key part of that offense. He was on the goal line, which is obviously where those 13 touchdowns come from. The only reason, like, I know and I respect this dude in the NFL is because, like, one of my best friends is a Cincinnati Bengals fan, and he's just like, you can't sleep on Joe, bro. We got 2 Joes, and they're both really good. But yeah, I mean, going back to 2018, he's had 1,000 yards. 2019, 1,000 yards. 2020 he was injured. 2021, 1,200 yards, and this year he had 800. Just because probably some injuries, or else he would have gotten up there. He had like 800.
Oh, that was the previous season. Okay, so I was right. Last season he didn't have that great of a season.
No,
Okay.
he didn't last season, but 2021 he did. But he said it wasn't even like that bad. He had like 800 yards this season, 210 carries, and 7 touchdowns, and he only played 14 games, so he still had 3 more to go, and he probably would have gotten to 1,000.
Yeah.
But yeah, Joe Mixon. Come on, guys, don't sleep on him. Who is your number 14? Because I think that's what we're on.
My number 14, this one may cause a little bit of stir, just because I think experts have him higher. Dobbins, the running back out of the Baltimore Ravens. The thing with J.K. Dobbins coming out of Ohio State, running back that has a second gear. He absolutely has a second gear, and he offense that is primarily option. It's primarily every play is going to be an option play. He potentially has his hands on the ball almost every Lamar does. But here's the thing. Counterparts Lamar Jackson. The best rushing quarterback in the NFL, like we said last pod. And he's going to take away a lot of attempts from him. That's why I have him down here and not a little bit higher, but I have to put J.K. Dobbins in the mix. J.K. Dobbins, since he's been in the league, has been very solid and has helped Lamar tremendously on that Ravens team. So that's my 14.
Yeah, I think it just like it stems from the issue of he hasn't played a lot, at least recently. And when he does play, it's just the scheme is just kind of holding it back, right? Because Lamar is going to take that ball. He's like the second running back to Lamar, basically, in like that offense that they have. Like the first option, they're going to run it with Lamar, and he's going to get more than a couple. I think Lamar had more rushing yards than he did this year. So it's like, it's a very good rushing attack as a whole, but like when you look at him individually, it's hard. It's hard to put him up in like the upper part of this list. And even so, I didn't even put him on here. So
yeah. And I mean, we're going to have guys that aren't there's a list, which is the fun part of doing this. But like the thing with JK is like, it's this season, right? Like you really got to say like, it's this season, not necessarily or bust, but my thing with him is just, you hit on it. You kind of nailed it. The scheme.
Yeah.
I see if he leaves the Ravens and if he goes to another team, like this is like a DeAndre Swift type thing. That DeAndre Swift going to the Eagles, even though he was doing very well at Detroit, I think he's going to go to another level with the Eagles. And I think the same thing with Dobbins is going to happen. The Ravens missing the playoffs, but realistically, it's going to come down to them in Miami, I think, in the AFC. And who is going to have the better rushing attack out of Miami? Who is going to have the better rushing attack out of Baltimore?
It's hard.
I think it's probably going to be Baltimore, but
probably.
the passing attack is obviously going to swing in the direction of the Dolphins. So how much better is the rushing attack for the Ravens? Is it enough to make the playoffs? Is it not enough to make the playoffs? And I think this season is going to be a top 20 back for sure this season.
I would really like to see it. I mean, hey, you got to give some credit to my boy out there in Miami, Raheem Mostert. He's on my list. You got to give him some credit. He's fast. He can do it. I promise. Who is your?
Yeah, he's got to get the ball.
That's true.
My number 13 is a guy that you already hit on, Najee Harris. So
okay,
yes, it is a little bit hard to say. Rating how he's been since he's come from Alabama. Has he been a bust? Done as good as you really think he has? It's kind of one of those up in the air questions. For me, I'm going to question his body of work, what they've had to overcome with that roster alone since he's been there. That alone gives him those years. But the thing is season solid. He had a solid rookie season. But the thing is with Mike Tomlin is he really likes to run the game through his quarterback. Obviously, everybody runs the game through their quarterback first, but I feel like with Mike Tomlin, he has a lot of faith in Kenny Pickett. I feel like with Najee, they really tried to make him that pass catcher that, he was really, really, I just drew a blank on the quarterback. Okay, Kenny Pickett. With Kenny Pickett, he got Kenny Pickett out of a lot. But if you watched a lot of those Steelers games, he took a lot of losses because Kenny Pickett made a bad read. He either threw a screen pass where he was in the backfield, he threw a halfback dive up the middle when they had two defensive tackles over the center, even though that's not allowed. He was rushing on obvious blitzing situations. Like there was one safety in the backfield, and he was still running right at the gut. It just didn't make a lot of sense when I was watching the Steelers. So I think that Najee has. I take that is that Dobbins and Najee hasn't necessarily been used the right way scheme wise the whole time they've been in the NFL, and I think that Najee clearly halfback one in this league. It's not even clearly he can be a running back one on a lot of teams. So that's why I have him at number 13.
I think that's completely reasonable. You know what I mean? Like you said, his rookie season, he was really good. And that's why immediately I was like, dang, this guy's going to be really good for a long time, you know? And then I think it's just, you know, the Kenny Pickett effect. The Kenny Pickett effect happened. And I completely agree with you. That's why I say I want to see more out of Najee, you know, because I think he's a good back, and I think he has the potential to be. I mean, heck, he played at Alabama. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to be a bad running back from Alabama. So
Exactly.
I completely agree with you. My number 13, and this might be a little low, but the only reason is because I want to see more. It is Travis Etienne. And I like Travis Etienne. I like him a lot. This dude is speed. I like speed. And funny story. I had him on my fantasy. I drafted him because I was like, I believe in this guy. His rookie season. And for the first like quarter of the season, he was like, meh, you know? I'm like, okay, whatever. And like the game that I dropped him, like the day that I dropped him, he just busts out for like 100 yards after 100 yards. And I'm just like, dude, come on. So, you know, maybe I have a little grudge against him, but no, he's really good. And they're just using him. You know what I mean? They just give him the ball and he just goes. And he's just like, oh, bye, see you later. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think Peterson is using him the very right way. I think they're giving him a lot more chances than you see other running backs get. More so that I think their number 2 is like James Robinson, and they don't even use him. They traded him away in the middle of the season or something like that. But
they traded him.
So it's like they don't even need him. So ETN is a staple in this offense, and I think number 13 is a good spot for him. If he continues to do what he does, he's going to rise very quickly.
I mean, I smiled if you were watching on YouTube because Travis Etienne is very close. I'm not going to tell you exactly where he is. He's very, very close to there. My number 12 is Dameon Pierce, the halfback out of Houston. It's only been like one season, but you have to look at him. And then I'm also going to give my number 11. That was Travis Etienne. So nice. That's why I was right there. So we were right there. So the thing with Dameon Pierce, the reason he is at number 12, not had a lot of time at all, but he was the literal only good part of that Houston Texans offense. He came out of absolutely nowhere. Nobody thought he was going to be a running back one. Was the best waiver wire pickup of last season. Literally, best waiver wire pickup of last season, and he balled out.
Yeah,
he's really young, and guess what? He has a rookie quarterback that's just going to continue to give him the ball. He's already been there, and it's a young core, and it's a very exciting team now. When you bring in these new young wide receivers, you bring in this new young quarterback, like. It is actually an exciting team. Not next year, but you know, in that division, all they have to compete with is ETN out of Jacksonville. So that's why these guys are so close. But like you look in this division, right? Houston arguably doesn't have a running back number 2. It doesn't have a running back number 2, which tells you we are putting all of our money, all of our chips in on these two guys. Mm-hmm. Dameon Pierce for me at number 12 and Travis Etienne at number 11. The exact same as Kenneth Walker and Breece Hall to me. You could switch them easily switch them one up or the other. Dameon Pierce, full package, didn't see it coming. Travis Etienne, not coming. I also called it whenever he got drafted. Him and Trevor Lawrence have had the chemistry since Clemson. That was Trevor's guy in Clemson. Etienne and him won a national championship, largely because of Etienne and largely because of Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne got hurt his first season. Robinson came in, played that whole year. Then last season, Etienne came in, and in training camp last year, you were like, oh, okay. I know why Dabo Swinney and Trevor Lawrence were raving about this guy.
Yeah.
raving about this guy. I mean, the Jacksonville took him in the second round when they had James Robinson. They don't do that. James Robinson was a good young running back. You didn't need a running back in the second round. That was a Trevor Lawrence. Hey, that's my guy. That's my guy. Let's bring him with me. And now he's going to be with him for however long he signs a contract. It's kind of like Dak and Zeke. It's those two.
Yes.
That's why I have ETN above Dameon Pierce, because I haven't seen the chemistry that he's going to have with CJ Stroud. And Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence arguably are top 5 chemistry rise in the entire NFL in terms of quarterback and running back, because of how long they've realistically played in college and now coming into the NFL. So that's my 12 and 11. Who do you got, Tanner? It's your
12 and 11. Yeah. So I think it's funny. I think it's really funny that this list is coming out this way, because guess who's at my number 12? It's Dameon Pierce. I didn't think this was going to happen. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, I just think the thing about Dameon Pierce is, you already hit on it, but Houston, they nabbed a good one. And last year, Houston just wasn't that good. They had nothing that they could really be proud of, except for Dameon Pierce. And I mean, through like the first half of the season, I really thought Dameon Pierce was going to take home the offensive rookie of the year if it wasn't Breece Hall. You know what I mean? But he slowed down a little bit, and that's fine. You know, he's a rookie, but he was the one bright spot in a really bad Texans roster. So I have to give the edge to him over ETN, just because I think ETN had, well, like you said it, they had, Trevor Lawrence, and they had a good receiving core, and they had just a lot of other weapons that the defense had to worry about. So they could just, give the ball to him on a draw, and he runs for 50. You know what I mean? But like, I like Dameon Pierce, but my number 11 is Miles Sanders. And the reason I put Miles Sanders on this list is because he had a breakout season. I think he had like 1,200 yards and a bunch of touchdowns. And I'm not really sure if that's because of the scheme or it's because he's really good. I've seen him on Philly. I've seen him play Dallas, and I've seen him in the league for a couple years now. And he's looked really good. And I think that's why he deserves this number 11 spot. Look, he's not on Philly anymore. He's over in Carolina. But I think they're going to lean on him a lot, especially since, Christian McCaffrey came from Carolina, and they know exactly what a good running back is, and they know how to kind of like push their scheme towards a good running back. And I think Miles Sanders has the ability to do it, which is why I have him here at 11. So that's pretty much it. That's my number 12 and my number 11.
I mean, I think those are totally fine. I think Miles Sanders I left off the list just because, for me, like, even in Philly when he was there, I didn't really see him as a top flight running back. You know what I mean? I didn't really see him as a top flight running back, and that's just one of those things. That's why, when I had, a J.K. Dobbins on the list, it's kind of the same thing with me. Miles Sanders just doesn't really do it. But here's the thing. You nailed it on Carolina. He is absolutely going to get the ball probably every single play, and it's going to be him and Chuba Hubbard pretty much splitting the carries.
Yeah.
And he's really going to have the carries over it because of the contract that they gave him.
Yeah.
He is walking in. He's going to be a running back one, quarterback that you have no idea what's going to happen. And guess what? He's going to need to develop chemistry with that quarterback. So I think that Miles Sanders is a really good name to have on the list. And he's absolutely going to be a running back next year. That's probably going to be in the top 20 in terms of fantasy points.
Yeah.
For me, I'll jump to my number 10 because we've already talked about him, Alvin Kamara. It's one of those things. At the end of this next season, he could arguably not be on this list because of the suspension that he's most likely going to face, and because of who they signed and who they brought over, Williams from Detroit. It's hard to say if Alvin Kamara is ever going to be the Alvin Kamara that he has been, but once again, you got to put him on the list. If you don't, it's just not fair, right?
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara, like, there's Jamar Gibbs. That's Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara Christian McCaffrey ran for a long time. You know what I mean? They ran the league for a long time. One of them's still doing it. The other one's not really still doing it right now, in my opinion, with Alvin Kamara. So that's why I have him at number 10, and he's not higher. Who's your number 10, Tanner?
I just want to say one more thing about Miles Sanders, but that I was thinking about. But the fact that he got as much attention as he did in this offseason on being on a roster with Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts, and the fact that he got as much attention, as much playing time as he did, I think should speak volumes to like it, just how much that he like how much he can do. You know what I mean? We obviously haven't seen it, but I think that in Carolina he's going to be really, really good. At number 10, I have Bijan Robinson. I think it's pretty high, but he's almost like a lock. You know what I mean? We already talked about him, but he's just going to bring another level to this Atlanta Falcons offense. I mean, he is just so. He just feels like one of the safest picks that I've ever seen come out of the NFL draft. Just give him the ball and he's going to cook. You know what I mean?
The only thing holding him back is going to be injuries, and
Yes.
you don't hope injuries on anybody. And that's the same thing with Saquon. Like the Saquon to me is like he's the most exciting running back to come out of college since Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
And like you said, yeah, we already talked about it and we hit on everything. It's going to be a fun offense to watch this season. And like I said, if you're in a dynasty fantasy league, draft this guy because he's going to be the starting running back in the top 5 probably for the next 4 years. Top 10, probably not top 5 this year, but top 10.
I don't know, man.
I mean, he could, right? He could. You have no idea what's going to happen.
His ceiling is so huge.
Dameon Pierce rolled up the boards and you had no idea what was going to happen. But this kid, this kid, he's special. He's very special. And for him to go that high in the draft, there's a reason for it. Nobody said running back was going to go in the top 10. Right? There's a reason for that. So jumping to my number 9, this one's a little bit, closer to home because I got to say I saw him in person. The Cowboys running back, I got Tony Pollard. Sitting there at number 9. If you were to ask me 2 seasons ago if you were to have Ezekiel Elliott or Tony Pollard on this list in 2 years, who would you have? I would have said Zeke. It's Tony Pollard. Zeke's not even on the list because Zeke, as we know, last season fell off, got cut from the Cowboys, and Tony Pollard clearly showed that he is a top 10 running back in the league. That's why he is at number 9 for me. The thing with Tony is he's coming off an injury. I don't know how that leg's going to happen. He already is back in training camp, which is nice. But the thing with Tony Pollard is that Dallas is going to lean on him. They're absolutely going to lean on Tony Pollard. And they're going to lean on him. He's got to be in the top 10 because he's going to get the rock practically every single time. Who's your number 9, Tanner?
I don't even have to say it at this point. It's Tony Pollard. Like
it's crazy.
I think you hit it right on the head. It's hard to put him higher because of the injury. Obviously I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm a homer. I love him and he's brought me so many happy moments, but like it's going to be hard to 1, replicate this season that he had, and 2, do it while he's coming off of an injury. So it's like my expectations are lower, and I think a lot of people should be seeing this as kind of like okay, he's going to be back, and Dallas is going to run him into the ground, but I don't think he's going to get as much production as he did last year. And I don't know, maybe he'll surprise me, but I don't know. It's funny. The point you said 2 years ago, who did you think was going to be higher on this list? I would have said Zeke by a landslide, but he's not even on a team. So
exactly. He's still not on a team. Go ahead and go with your 8th. I'm interested to see if we have the same player for this one too.
I didn't think this was going to be as similar as it's going to be, but my number 8 is a free agent right now. His name is Dalvin Cook, and let me just tell you a couple of this boy's stats because I looked it up and I was actually really surprised. If you haven't seen what Dalvin Cook has done in the past couple seasons, you got to go back and look at it, man, because in 2022, he had 1173 yards, 8 touchdowns. 2021, he had 1159, 6 touchdowns. In 2020, 1557 and 16 touchdowns. I remember that season. 1135 the previous season in 2019 and 13 touchdowns. And the 2 years before that, 600 and 300 with 2 touchdowns each. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. He's going on 4 1,000-yard seasons and one of them being 1,500. And in that time, he's had like 30 touchdowns. Like, what? This dude is insane. And he's a free agent. Minnesota's just like letting him walk. And how old is he? He's been in the league a while,
He's got to be in his upper 20s. I don't think he's in the 30s yet, but yes,
in 6 years.
Yeah, we have the same number 8. My number 8 is Dalvin Cook. There's no, I don't know if Minnesota said they're not bringing him back. That's crazy if they're not going to bring him back, but you said everything. Dalvin Cook's a complete running back. He is a top 10 running back in this league. He's been a top 10 running back since he came out of state. It's just that simple. Dalvin Cook is nasty. And the stats alone, you gave it away. And guess what? He also he catches passes out of the backfield too. That season where he had 1,500 yards, he had a lot of passing yards to go with it too, and some receiving touchdowns.
So
He
good.
is.
He's 27.
He's the entire 27. He's still got at least 6 years left.
He's good.
Then jumping to number 7, I have Derrick Henry, the running back out of Tennessee. I have to put in Derrick Henry here at number 7. He definitely has fallen off. You can see that he fell off last year. But the thing is that he calls King Henry. Call him King Henry, baby. And he's King Henry for a reason. He is going to run you over, and he still has at least 3-4 years of running fools over at the number 1 running back position.
Yeah, I agree. Another thing about Dalvin Cook, I just looked it up. He's not been released, but he is probably expected to be traded. I don't really know what's going on with that situation, but yeah, I don't know. Dalvin Cook's really good. Number 7, you had Derrick Henry, the king. I guess he's number 7, so he's like a nobleman now. He's not quite the king anymore, you know. Number 7, I have, and this is kind of surprising, but I have this year's leading rusher, Josh Jacobs, which is, it's hard for me to put him at number 7, man. It really is, because he looks so good this year. But it almost feels like Josh Jacobs is a running back I forget every year, if that makes any sense. He's just a running back he's really good. Don't get me wrong. He went to like Bama. A lot of these guys are from Bama, but like he's just, this kind of feels like his breakout season. You know what I mean? Where everyone's finally talking about him, finally giving him some respect. So that's why I put him at number 7. Just for the fact that like he's had production over the past few years. Don't get me wrong, but it's almost like this is the first time the Raiders finally just started to feature him. You know, I was saying it before, or like midway through this past season, like these guys need to go a different direction. You know what I mean? And they finally did, and they started featuring him, and they started getting results. I mean, he's good. He's really good. But what do you think about my number 7?
And I like it. He's a little bit higher on the list for me,
Yeah.
but I love it. He was the leading rusher in the NFL for a reason. Yes, he's an Alabama running back. There's a coach there that knows how to make running backs with old Nick Saban. But the thing with Josh Jacobs is that he has power, not necessarily has speed, not necessarily has the pass catching ability. He's so good at everything. He's not bad at one thing. That's the thing with Josh Jacobs. That's what I always say is he's so good at everything. He's not great at one thing, in my opinion, but he's so good at everything else. So, yeah, I mean, he was a leading rusher in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Of course he's going to be a top. Like, of course. You know what I mean? Of course he is. And, yeah, it took a long time for the Raiders to actually give him, you know, the full reign. But that was the quietest 1,500-yard season I'd ever heard.
I know.
Ever heard. The quietest season in the entire – he was leading – I think pretty much the entire year. It's like, yeah, it's him. Like, it's all good. It's his race at this point with Josh Jacobs. And it's like, how do you not want that guy to be a pillar on your offense? Like, that is absolutely % okay.
Yeah.
And then number 6 for me was the running back out of the Chargers. Sneckler. I would have had him higher than this, but this offseason, he said he wanted to be traded. And then they had a draft, and he's like, no, never mind. Bring me back. I'm good.
So
a lot of incentives. They added like 2.5 mil in incentives. I don't know. To me, that scares me. I don't know why he would want to be traded. He's been featured in that team for so long. I think he's not necessarily got 5-10 years left. I think he's probably in the range of 3 to 4 at the level of he's at right now. But he's been so good for so long, and been one of the best pass catchers of arguably all time out of the backfield. That's why he's my number 6.
Yeah, I mean, Austin Eckler it's just hard to account for him, you know what I mean, in that offense as it was, and the offense got better over this offseason and draft, so it's going to be even harder to see who gets the rock now. But I completely agree with that. My number 6, and this is where it starts to get dicey, because like any of these guys could be in this situation. You know what I mean? Like any of these guys could be number 6 through 1. At this point, it's a throw up. You could just pull names out of a hat, and it would be the exact same. My number 6 is Saquon Barkley. And the only reason for that is just because of the injuries that he's had. When he finally plays a full season, he is electric. He is the Giants' best players, and even though he's number 6 on this list, when he plays, he's a top 5 running back in the NFL. You know what I mean? Because he just brings so much to the game. and he just brings so much attention from the defense that it just allows you to do other things. And I'm finally happy that Dable has enabled him to be able to do this. Like New York has had some bad coaches over the past couple seasons, including Jason Garrett, which is but I don't know. I mean, like I said, Saquon's a top 5 back when he's in the field. When he's not, it's hard because injuries do play into this kind of thing. But Saquon, man, Penn State, they know how to put him out.
Absolutely. And, with him and Miles Sanders, they absolutely know how to put him out. Saquon's my number 5.
Okay.
I'll just go ahead and say it. Saquon's my number 5. The thing with Saquon is that he is the complete package, and he was the best running back to come out of college, like, since freaking Barry Sanders. Like, he was the most exciting prospect to come out of Penn State because he ran, I think, a sub 4.4. And he could jump over you and he could truck you, and his nickname is Saquats. I got his 98 overall card on Madden right now. You know what I mean? Saquats. It's the literal name of the card. That's what he is. And you said it. If he is healthy, he is a top 5 running back in this league, if not a top 3 running back in this league.
Yeah.
He is so much fun to watch because there's not a single thing that he will not do. So that's why he's my number 5, and Tanner said it. All of these guys are interchangeable. These guys are kind of like the top 3 quarterbacks in the league. They're all kind of interchangeable at this point. The running backs in the top 5 are kind of all interchangeable. Tanner, with your number 5 and 4.
My number 5 and 4, this one's going to hurt. I'm going to be honest. This one's going to hurt a lot because I just don't think he's better than the people above him. And I have the Cleveland Browns running back Nick Chubb at number 5. And it's hard for me to say it because he has been the only good thing about Cleveland's offense in the past couple of years. But the thing that just I hate to see about this offense and what I see happening going forward is the coaching staff really wants to center on Deshaun Watson, which is fine. That's okay. But they don't give him the ball, which is stupid because it's Nick Chubb. Give him the ball and he's going to give you like 7 yards at least. Or any other time he's going to break one. But the reason I don't have him as high on this list is because of that. Because he's just not getting the carries that he deserves. And granted, he had Kareem Hunt that he was splitting carries with. But at that point, it was like a series here and a series there. When the game was on the line, obviously Nick Chubb's going to be in the game. But it's hard because every running back above him, another point is they have almost all of them. They have like dual sets of skills. You know what I mean? Like they're really, really, really good at one thing, or they're like really, really good I'll say they're really good at 2 things. You know what I mean? Like Nick Chubb, I would say he's an excellent rusher. He doesn't really catch balls out of the flat and out of like the backfield. Like he does occasionally, but that was more like Kareem Hunt's role when they were in Cleveland. But Nick Chubb, he's really good at going forward, and that's pretty much it. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, he's a home run hitter, and that's why he's number 5 on this list.
That's exactly what it is. And I mean, Nick Chubb, I get what you're saying. Cleveland really isn't going to feature him, and you're practically a Cleveland insider reporter at this time, so I'm going to listen to whatever you have to say of Cleveland. But Nick Chubb is, right? Like we said, these guys are all interchangeable at 1 through 5, but Nick Chubb has been the most consistent thing in Cleveland past 4 years. Like every single year he is up there in the league in terms of top 3 rushers, not top 5, top 3. He's up there every single year. This is the first year I had him on fantasy last year, and my God, I've been missing out. I totally understand why everybody wants him on fantasy because every game he gets you 20 points. Yep. And there's a reason for that. He's one of the best running backs in the league. He's going to get you 100 yards rushing. He's going to somehow catch a screen that's going to go for 80 because it's Nick Chubb in the open field, and good luck tackling him. So, yeah, I mean, I'm completely good with that number 5. Who do you have at number 4?
I have at number 4, Austin Eckler, and this is just for the same reasons as I just talked about. He's a dual threat. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can do everything. You know what I mean? Like he can run up the middle. He can run sideways. He can run up or down. He can catch the ball. He can throw the ball. I mean, well, he probably can't throw it, but he's just the full package. And it's like whenever the ball is in Austin Eckler's hands, wherever he is on the field, he's going to be dangerous. You know what I mean? Like he's like slightly above Nick Chubb in that aspect. I think that's what gives him the edge over Nick Chubb for me.
I mean, the simple fact that you're not going to be able to draw up the same place for Austin Eckler that you are Nick Chubb, right? Like I mean, realistically saying, if you're walking into a room and it's Austin Eckler and it's Nick Chubb, For me, I'm going to take Nick Chubb just because he's a little bit higher on the list for me. But personally, you're not getting a bad running back if you're getting Austin Eckler too. And the thing is with you is Austin Eckler, he's probably going to get you 1,000 yards receiving. Not going to do that, right? Like Austin Eckler's probably going to get you 1,000 yards receiving. So jumping to my number 4, it's Josh Jacobs. I had to have him in the top 5. Had to put respect on his name because he got was the league leader in rushing last year. Number 3, I'm just going to hit on it too, just because we just talked about it, is Nick Chubb for me. That only leaves 2 guys left. I won't hit on 2 and 1, but I mean, Nick Chubb is, like I said, been the most consistent thing in Cleveland when there wasn't a whole lot, to be happy about. Him and Myles Garrett have been the most consistent things since they've gotten there, honestly. Myles on the defensive side of the ball and Chubb on the offensive side of the ball, but great running back. And Nick Chubb's a running back that you want to start your franchise with, and that's why he's number 3 on this list. Who is your number 3 running back, Tanner?
For number 3, you got to put respect on his name. He might not be the king anymore, but he can be the prince. His name is Derrick Henry. He's coming off of like a 1,500 yard like rushing season, and people call him old, which he is old. He doesn't have the same get up and go as he once did, but it doesn't matter, people. He still will run through you. Like I remember the game that he like came out basically. He just like, I think it was, I don't remember who it was against, but he just ran down the sidelines and just threw people with one arm. Like, oh my goodness. I think I watched him throw Josh Norman to the sideline twice. Like this guy, it's the king. He's the king. You can't debate the king, people. That's why I have him at number 3. He's still producing. I think that's the big thing here. He's still getting a bunch of yards. He has a bunch of carries, but he's getting old. I get that, but he's still producing at the level that he was.
And like you said, you have to put respect on his name. The only reason that I have him at number 7 and not number 3 is literally because I saw a gear fall off a little bit next year. But here's the thing: he's still going to run you into the ground. You're the nail and he's the hammer.
Exactly. He was second in rushing. Like, come on! Like, he had 13 touchdowns.
Crazy.
That's crazy.
That's also the quietest season that Derrick Henry has ever had. Last year, I feel like rushing in general was just so quiet around the NFL. So that was your number 3.
Yeah.
I think we have the same number 1 and number 2. I'm interested.
We do.
Who is your number 2? Because I'm interested to see how you have him ranked.
I will do number 2 because you probably already know who the first one is if I reveal number 2. My number 2, and the only reason he's number 2 is because he was injured slightly this year, is Jonathan Taylor. It's Jonathan.
Same number 2.
Okay, so number 2 and number 1 is number 2 is Jonathan Taylor, and number 1 is Christian McCaffrey. So I just don't. It's hard in a world for me to see where Jonathan Taylor, he's amazing. He was probably the best running back in football last year, and I think that's undebatable. But he was injured. He didn't lose a step or anything like that, but he just didn't play as much as he should have, and he didn't put out the numbers that he needed, right? And the thing that makes Christian McCaffrey number 1 is because it's kind of like the Saquon effect. When he's on the field, I feel like he's the best running back in football. He can do anything, And this is where the other point comes in. He can run the ball, he can catch the ball, or he can throw the ball. And he did all 3 of those things this past season in the same game, by the way. Go check that out. That was kind of cool. But he's finally on a team that focuses, Christian McCaffrey, by the way, is finally on a team that focuses on the run. Kyle Shanahan's going to get this boy right. He was in Carolina for a long time, and he had injury problems. But this season, we saw him have a full season, and they were in the NFC Championship game because of it. I don't know how you can be the best player on a roster with all the best players at their position, basically, and like George Kittle, Debo, you know what I mean? Like it's insane to me. But in a very rushing based scheme in Kyle Shanahan, he's the best running back in the NFL, I think, right now.
He's the best running back in the NFL. Christian McCaffrey at number 1, Jonathan Taylor at number 2. The thing about Jonathan Taylor is Jonathan Taylor had like 300 plus carries, like practically a season coming out of college in terms of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So the thing with Jonathan Taylor is that I said he was going to be the best running back. He's number 1 running back on my board that year. I'm a big fan of Jonathan Taylor. That's why he's my number 2 and not my number 1. But like Tanner said, he did get injured last year. And the thing with Jonathan Taylor is he already has probably more carries than Christian McCaffrey somehow. Yeah. Right. Like Jonathan Taylor, not only is a workhorse, but Indianapolis is like 99% Jonathan Taylor, 1% Michael Pittman. Like that's Indianapolis, right? Like that's all they do. So this year, Jonathan Taylor is going to go back to probably not 99, but he'll go to 90. and then you'll have Pittman being the other 10%, and then you have Christian McCaffrey, like you said. I can't take anything you said. He's the best running back in football. When he's on the field, you have to have two people on him, and that's a running back, and you don't really do that. Yes, he's thrown the ball, he's caught the ball, he can pass the. He's done everything.
Yes,
and that is the easiest number one for me in terms of who's there. It was really easy from 1 to 10 for me on this list, and then from 10 to 20 it was really hard. And then the honorable mentions.
that's crazy.
Is that all you got on the rankings, Tan? Are we ready to wrap this up?
I mean, pretty much. I think the thing about Christian McCaffrey is if you switched him to wide receiver, he'd be like a top 20 wide receiver. You know what I mean? Like, I think immediately he wouldn't even need to do anything. Basically, yeah. Basically,
right?
You know,
with a little bit more speed, and guess what? In the open field, have freaking fun.
Yeah, he's so good.
What he is. He's an upgraded Wes Welker, and Wes Welker's like won multiple Super Bowls and everything.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, man, I completely agree. But this was a fun one. We're gonna do some more rankings and everything. I think we got wide receiver rankings coming up shortly, folks. But that wraps up another episode. Thanks everyone for the listen. Catch y'all next week for more sports talk.
Bye.